Inverse relations and functions. First, we're going to talk about finding the inverse when given a graph. So over here in purple, I have the original graph with 4 points. To plot an inverse of a point or a graph, all you have to do is switch your x and y values. So for example, my original point is -8, -1. So if I was to switch that, it would become it would become -1, -8. Sorry, let me get my pointer. So I'm going to take a point. I'm going to go -1, -8. And I'm just going to label that. So my new point is -1, -8. And that's all we're going to do through all of these. So the next one is -4, +1. If I was to flip it, it would become +1 and then -4. So this point is +1, -4. All right, then I have 0, 3. So if I flip that, it becomes 3, 0. And finally, I have 6, 6. And if I flip that, it stays at 6, 6. So all we do is just switch the numbers. And then finally, we connect the points. And that is graphing an inverse. We're also going to have to find the inverse of an equation. And we have the same process where all we do is switch our x and y. And this time, we have an added step of solving for y, so getting y by itself. So looking at my first example, y equals 3x plus 14. First thing I'm going to do is switch the x and the y. So it's going to say x is equal to 3y plus 14. Now I have to get y by itself. So I'm going to start by subtracting 14. All right, we cancel the 14 out. X minus 14, those are not like terms, so we keep it as x minus 14 is equal to 3y. Then finally, we have to get rid of the 3, so we'll divide everybody by 3. Cancels out the 3 in the front. X divided by 3, you can't do that. 14 divided by 3, you can't simplify that. So here's a shortcut way to write this. Since the bottom number for both of these fractions are the same, we can keep the x minus 14 on the top and just put it over one fraction. This is most likely how you're going to see it written. So all that is equal to y. And if you want to be correct, we'll say y to the -1. When it's raised to the -1, that means inverse. If you don't remember that or don't want to write it, that's fine. I'll just be happy if we can get to the x minus 14 over 3. Okay, we've got another example of finding the inverse of an equation. So again, the first step is to switch my x and y. Well, I don't have a y, right? Wrong. F of x, that's the same as y. So just be aware of that. So now we're still just switching. So we're going to have x is equal to 2y plus 1 over 5. Now we need to get the y by itself. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of my fraction. If you can remember back from day one, we talked about solving equations. And to get rid of a fraction, we just multiply by the bottom number. So multiply each side by 5 in this case. So that cancels out my fraction. And I'm still left with whatever's on the top. So I still have 2y plus 1 is now equal to 5 times x, 5x. All right, next step, I'm going to subtract 1 from each side. That cancels out the 1. 5x minus 1, those are not like terms, so we leave it as 5x minus 1 is equal to 2y. And finally, our last step, divide each side by 2. So divide everybody by 2. Cancels out the 2 in the front. 5 divided by 2, that won't give us a nice number. 1 divided by 2, that won't give us a nice number. So since 2 is the same on the bottom for both, we're just going to write it as one fraction. So 5x minus 1 over 2 is equal to y. And again, if we put the negative 1 up there, that means this is the inverse. So that is an overview about inverse relations and functions. So again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions.